There you go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reign of Troy Radio, episode 440, coming to you on Monday, August 29th. It is game week. USC is going to play a football game in the Lincoln Riley era this Saturday, at the Coliseum, 3 p.m. on the Pac-12 networks. I hope you guys are excited. We're excited. We're going to talk about this season going into it this year and give you our game predictions. It's our annual season prediction episode. We're going to walk through every single game on USC's roster, on USC's schedule. Roster we did last episode. On the schedule and go through, give you our win and loss totals and all that and so much more here on this episode. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Reign of Troy. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Reign of Troy. Be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, right here on YouTube, and anywhere else you can find a podcast. We are there. Our email address is reignoftroy@fanside.com, and our phone number, 213-373-1USC. Second What's Burn Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Reign of Troy studio in Los Angeles, Alicia Derritola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, it is game week. How excited are you?
I am pumped. I am absolutely pumped. It's game week. We are just days away from USC football, from getting to watch Lincoln Riley pull the strings with this offense. And I'm counting down the days.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time to get your feet wet with the Lincoln Riley era this week against Rice, and maybe probably not the game that you would have worried or circled to be worried about on USC schedule, but that's a good thing. You need to work into something. So I don't want to give away our spoilers of what we think how the Rice game will go. We'll be back on Wednesday with a full preview episode for that one. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys in the chat are excited. Be sure to join us along, everyone who is watching us on YouTube. Throw in your questions there. Tell us how excited you are for Saturday. What are you guys doing on Saturday? What is your situation? Are you going to the game? Let us know in the comments. Are you going to be at home, tailgating at home, tailgating at the Coliseum, on campus? What are you doing? Let us know. Alicia, my setup and your setup is going to be a little bit different this year. Not only are we going to do live car casts after each game, and we talked about this before. So Saturday night, the game's at 3:00. It's probably be done at 6:30 or so, wouldn't you say?
Thereabouts.
Yeah, so right about 6:30, we're going to go live with our first post-game car cast of the season and the first ever on YouTube. So I'm super excited for that, except, Alicia, it's going to be your first solo car cast in forever because I won't be able to join us.
Yeah, when you say we are going to be live, you mean I am going to be live.
I'll be tuning in.
You'll be tuning in. He's going to be on assignment somewhere, not in Los Angeles, and that's a bummer.
Should we tell the people what my assignment is?
I mean, if you want to.
I am helping my best friend move, which means driving across the country 2,000 miles over Labor Day weekend. So by all accounts, I will be somewhere in the middle of Wyoming or Utah during the Rice game. So I'll be tuning in, hopefully, assuming that we have some sort of cell service.
I mean, that's the real question, is how connected to the world will you be by that point?
We'll have to see.
I just have a question of, is moving the first week of September on par with scheduling a fall wedding? Because
I think it should be. I mean, one of the things we've talked about before, this is going to be the first year in 30 years that I will not be going to the Coliseum for a game because we're going to be putting all of our eggs in the post-game CarCast basket.
Yeah, guys, so make sure you show up.
But on top of that, missing a game in a CarCast is going to be a bummer. But the good news is, for sure, is that we will be doing CarCast all week. And next week is the big rivalry game against Stanford. So I will be there for that.
On the plus side, a solo CarCast for me means it's just going to be all me just interacting with everybody in the chat. So if there was ever a time to tune in live, like that's going to be the one.
Let's be honest. People do not tune in for me. They tune in for you. And so this is going to be great. There's going to be more Alicia time. People will be super excited to see what you're mad about, what you're giddy about, all those things. People will join in and get pumped with you on Saturday night. And then the Fallout episode next Monday will be a solo one for you too. So I will be back for the Stanford preview, but I'll be here for the race preview too. So look forward to those things. Let's go, and before we get into the news, as always, you can help grow the show by leaving us a review over on Apple Podcasts. We do have a new review over there. This comes from D-Side Vivix, who says, hands down, one of the best CFB USC podcasts out there. Top quality show with two people that actually know their stuff. In-depth discussions on real inside football topics that get missed by the bigger sports news networks. Going to be a great season. Congrats on the wedding and fight on. 5 stars. Thank you for that. That's
very awesome. Thank you. Yes, we appreciate all of the this wave of new reviews is really heartwarming to us, and keep them coming, guys.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, you can help support the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like this live stream right now. Hit the button. We'll wait. Where is it? It's like over here somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, is it on the right or the left?
I think. You tell me when you click it. There you go. There you go. You got it. Like the stream, like the video, and be sure to subscribe to us there. But Alicia, we got some news to get into, and then predictions for the 2022 USC football season. Let's get into some news really quick because we got so much to talk about with the schedule. New commitments. SC got 4 new commitments this past month in August. 4-star wide receiver Jacoby Lane. That's a big one. 3-star offensive linebacker Alani Noah. 4-star edge rusher.
That's a new position.
Did I say offensive?
You said offensive linebacker.
I'm losing it. It's been a long month, guys.
It has.
4-star edge rusher Braylon Shelby. 4-star corner Malachi Crawford. What makes of you all of the recruiting efforts this month?
Yeah, we haven't really covered these this month, and so we're just going to do a quick roundup here. Jacoby Lane is a big 4-star receiver that is obviously the more receivers you get, the happier everybody is in this offense. The one I really want to highlight, though, is Alani Noah, only a 3-star, but big body offensive lineman. More offensive linemen. USC absolutely needs to start just filling up that position group. So that one, obviously, a very, very big get in terms of positional needs. So USC's recruiting is chugging along. It feels like every week they're adding another prospect. So the momentum is good. And now it's all down to what happens on the football field and whether or not they can carry that into the December signing day.
Yeah, the Trojans currently ranked 13th nationally. Mind you, that's with 17 commitments, 2 5-stars, 8 4-stars. Which is not many compared to some of the other big schools. I mean, you look at Ohio State's got 17 4-stars, Notre Dame 19 already. They're 4th and 6th, though, the Buckeyes. But lots of time. We'll see how everything comes together for Lincoln Riley's first real full class. You could say that the class this past signing day wasn't, not like he was here the full cycle. So this one, especially the full cycle the whole way.
Especially with an early signing day, coaches are at such a disadvantage when they get hired to begin with. So this will be a really, really big class for USC and for Lincoln Riley. And I firmly believe that the moment things start going well with this season, it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel.
Sure.
I was going to say ducks in a pond, but I don't think that's actually that easy. Yeah.
I don't think any of those things are easy.
No.
Let's talk about some NIL updates from the Boulevard and Stay Doubted. What is this thing about Stay Doubted wants $50,000 per player? What?
Yeah, so the Stay Doubted Collective is trying to put together essentially a salary for every player on the roster. And this is the direction that NIL is going in. So we can expect that this is just keeping up with the Joneses, basically. The other interesting thing this week is that Boulevard, which is the officially sanctioned NIL collective that USC has, I think they call themselves a Collective Plus. They have officially launched and are now taking on partners and donations and all of that. So the game is on for USC, and it looks like these two things are going to coexist, and we're going to see how they interact with each other as things go forward. Obviously, I think USC wants just Boulevard to be involved here, but it looks more and more like State Outed is not just talk in the newspaper. It's they're moving forward.
Yeah, it's all good news for USC in the sense of if you're going to compete on the highest level against everybody else in the SEC, the Big Ten, you're going to have some sort of collective of some sort. I mean, the key thing for USC is going to be wanting to make sure that all the compliance aspects are checked.
Yes.
And that doing the Boulevard thing, I think, kind of gives SC some control back a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Where with State Outed, it's no, sorry, not State Outed. Student Body Right. I keep getting that wrong. Student Body Right is the one that's the collective from outside. They're you got to just cross your fingers and hope they stay above board. They should know better than to skirt the rules, but
right.
you know,
yeah,
it would be easier if the NCAA made the rules clear. So
you're hoping for something that'll never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The problem with college football is you need some sort of overlord that looks over things and is that commissioner, but nobody wants to agree on who that commissioner would be, because that would mean ceding power. The SEC doesn't want to cede power. The Big Ten doesn't want to cede power, etc. So it's this whole big thing, and it ends up being what it is. But let's get into the season predictions. Alicia, USC plays 12 games starting on Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific at the Coliseum, Pac-12 Network, against Rice. Let's get into our season predictions here. We've thrown up a handy-dandy spreadsheet over on YouTube if you're following us on YouTube. With all the games we'll walk through who says what and see what our final tallies of USC's win totals are. Alicia, Rice, coached by Mike Bloomgren, the former Stanford assistant in his 5th year with the Owls, 4-8 last year. They don't bring a ton back in terms of overall production. They were 77th overall ranked in that, but 14 starters, 7 on offense, 7 on defense. What do you got about the Owls in week 1?
It's Rice. They're not good. I don't know how else to say that. They just are not good. If USC has played some not good teams to start the season before, and it's been a little bit easy to like highlight, okay, there's this intriguing quarterback, or there's this intriguing wide receiver or running back or something. I don't see it with this team. It's kind of the perfect like startup game.
Yeah, you look at SC's non-conference games of late. They've played a lot of really good G5 teams, right? We've talked about in the past, Western Michigan, a team that's coming off of a Cotton Bowl. SC's played Fresno State a bunch of times. They're going to play Fresno State in week 3 this year. And Fresno State's always been a very respectable G5 team. Look at BYU last year, right? Like a very good team that, nearly was talking about the playoffs at one point. So SC has played those teams. Rice is certainly not one of them. I think we can just tally this up as a win. You're predicting a win. I'm predicting a win. Easy peasy for USC in week 1 and week 2. Is that? I mean, week 1 for both of us. Is that fair?
1-0 start. If this isn't a win, then tune in for that CarCast, because I don't know that I will be in a rational state of mind.
All right, let's talk about week 2. Week 2, obviously the big one up at Stanford. SC going to the Farm first time in 4 years. Didn't go there a couple of years ago during COVID. David Shaw, now in his 12th year, the Cardinals were 3-9 last year. 3-9, including a dominating thumping of the Trojans at the Coliseum. Just completely tore SC apart. Austin Jones, who's currently one of USC's running backs, played a big role in that. Tanner McKee is the quarterback. They bring back 17 starters, 10 on offense. 94% of their production is back on offense, second most in the country, third most in returning production, all told, offense and defense. Alicia, what do you make of the Stanford Cardinal? I feel like we constantly struggle to make anything of the Stanford Cardinal, and here we go, week 2.
Well, Stanford struggles to make anything of Stanford half the time at this point, so I don't know. I have been beating the drum of like the week 2 wake-up call, the Stanford wake-up call, what's the most silly thing that'll happen? So it probably will, the Stanford loss, all of that kind of stuff. And there is reason to look at this team and say, okay, you can't take them lightly. Tanner McKee looks like a legitimate quarterback. They have E.J. Smith at running back, who's the son of Emmitt Smith. On defense, I tend to think that they will bounce back a little bit. They've got a shutdown corner in Kai Blue Kelly. They have an Oklahoma transfer in Pat Fields at free safety. There's little pieces here and there to suggest they won't be 3-9 again this year. Having said that, the more I think about it, the more I cannot in good conscience call this a USC loss. I just can't do it. I can't. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. There are no football reasons that USC should lose this game.
Here we go.
I'm picking the win, and I'm going to regret it.
It's not even the season hasn't even started, and you're bringing up the football reasons.
I know. It's just.
So we have SC starting out 2-0 with a win at Stanford. All right.
Yeah.
I have said this from the beginning. SC's first loss in the Lincoln Riley era is week 2 against Stanford. Hear me out. I don't trust Stanford as far as I can throw them. 3-9 last year. They were dead last in the Pac-12 in defense. And if there's any strength on this team for USC, it will be the offense. And that's the offense that you would think would be ahead of the defense, especially early on this season, because they're returning a quarterback within the system in Caleb Williams, even though he wasn't USC's quarterback last year. It's the same system for him, right? And all of these high-powered weapons that SC has, it comes down to one thing. David Shaw, I don't think he's the great elite coach that he once was. I think the game, in a lot of ways, has sort of passed him by, and he's been a little reluctant to adapt, even though we've seen Stanford go to a more air raid attack and do all those things. I think he's adapting slowly. Having said that, if there's one thing that David Shaw is good at, it's winning games, the big games, when they have no business winning them. And I think that if you're David Shaw, you spend your entire offseason circling this game, putting all of your eggs in this basket. I would easily, I don't know who Stanford plays in week 1.
They play Colgate.
Colgate?
Yeah.
I expect them to struggle against Colgate because they're probably not going to put anything on film and come out here and give SC hell in week 2. And the thing I've been cautious of for USC is a slow start when it comes to talking about things about so many guys are new on this roster, and it's going to take time to gel, especially on defense. And when Stanford brings back so many guys on offense, including Tanner McKee, and we know Tanner McKee can sling it. We saw him last year do it against SC. We saw it as a recruit when he was coming out of Corona, right? Like, SC fans know Tanner McKee pretty damn well. I think this is the game that Stanford wins. I think it's a game where it's a early season setback. I don't think it necessarily defines the season for SC. I don't think this is the same loss as Clay Helton's teams would suffer. This is mostly SC is breaking in a roster of so many different new components. You can't expect everything to work smoothly immediately. And when David Shaw puts all of his eggs in the basket of beating SC every year, I think that sort of continues. So
honestly, if they weren't playing Colgate, I would maybe be a little bit more consistent in my I'm scared of this game sort of take. Like if they were playing Purdue or something, or some random like Big 12 team or something to start the
Right.
season.
If they were playing Rice.
Yeah, if they were playing Rice, but the fact that they're playing Colgate, like it's not going to be the same. Like, oh, Stanford struggles and then suddenly turns it on in week 2.
Yeah.
I think the narrative flips this season.
I don't know. We'll see. I think certainly on paper, I don't think you're wrong. Like I think the no football reasons is a thing, and in the comments, Poncho Cam is like, "Who's going to cover our wide receivers?" Yeah, that's a very valid point. Like I said, they were dead last in defense in the Pac-12 last year. I don't think Stanford can cover the breadth of USC's receivers. So I think this ends up being probably a high-scoring game.
But you know what it is? Sure. More than anything, this game will come down to protecting the football. I think if USC doesn't commit turnovers in this game, they're going to run away with it. Because offensively, I think like my fears of Tanner McKee going off are lessened significantly if we look at what Poncho Cam is saying. It's like, how are they going to cover the receivers? Well, yeah, they're not going to be able to stop this offense unless the offense shoots themselves in the foot. So like, right. To me, if you're predicting a USC loss at Stanford, I think it's going to be less about what David Shaw does and more, is USC sloppy? Are there communication issues that lead to like a turnover situation that is the reason for the loss? Not necessarily matchups here or there. It's just literally like USC lost the turnover battle by 2. They lost the game.
Yeah, when you're bringing in so many different new players, I think there's going to be growing pains, especially on defense for SC. Because it's a brand new defensive system.
But this is also a David Shaw offense that is also known for shooting themselves in the foot.
Yes,
so like if it's a shootout, like give me USC.
I know, but they were 3-9 last year and they beat SC and Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah, so they do it. I know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah.
I'm not saying you're unreasonable.
I don't trust Stanford.
That's fair.
I just weirdly trust Stanford in these types of games.
But you don't trust Stanford to lose when they ought to lose in this context.
Yes, essentially, yeah. Let's go to week 3. SC against another in-state rival to the north of sorts. Not really a rival. Fresno State. Jeff Tedford back with the Bulldogs. He was the Bulldogs were 10-3 last year. They returned a whole bunch of guys on offense and defense. 15 starters all told, 8 on offense, including that guy, quarterback Jake Haener. If you didn't see the UCLA game last year, please go back and watch the last 5 minutes. An incredible performance from Jake Haener. The dude was like basically a zombie moving up and down the field. I don't know how he beat UCLA, but he did.
You know that meme that's popular right now where it's the X-ray and then there's like the dog in the X-ray?
Yes, Jake
Haener should have been getting that treatment if that meme had been around.
Yes, he's got that dog in him, for sure.
He's got that dog in him.
Yeah, this is an interesting game where I think that, I talk about the Stanford game as being like the early test, and for a team with as many changing components as SC has, it would make sense that you might not win that early test. Fresno State is, on paper, easily the bigger test than Stanford is. But Fresno State's at home. SC tends to beat Fresno State in these things in games that are very close. Very close. So what do you have in week 3?
This one's tricky. This one's really tricky because that Fresno State team last year was dangerous as all hell. And keeping Jake Haener, despite losing Kalen DeBoer to Washington, was a huge, huge win because he's the heart and soul of that team. So I think that you underestimate this Fresno State team at your own peril.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, it's at the Coliseum. USC will have the talent advantage as always. Jeff Tedford, will he be able to keep that sort of momentum going with this team? How much of that was Kalen DeBoer? How much of that was Tedford's skill on offense? It's tricky. It's tricky.
Who you got?
I got USC, but I think this will be the game where people might start to feel a little bit nervous about instead of being I have USC at 3-0 at this point. instead of being like a 3-0 where everyone's talking about like, oh, it's time to get, it's time to get going. It's like, I think this game will be a harbinger for what comes next, if you get my drift.
Okay. Save that thought. For me, Fresno State is the impressive early win for SC. I think Fresno State is arguably the toughest opponent in September. I mean, week 4 at Oregon State in Corvallis is probably tougher. We'll get to that in a minute. But Fresno State is right there as like a 1A, 1B kind of situation, those two games. And I think SC gets the win. I think that this is when you start to see things sort of come together for SC. Again, for me, it's about the defense. How long is it going to take the defense to sort of turn around? And mind you, I think Jake Hayner and Jalen Cropper, like those guys are very good. Very, very good. Again, go back and watch that UCLA game last year. But I think SC is able to sort of rally after the Stanford loss and get the win here, leading up to the game at Corvallis. So
before we move to Corvallis, I do want to highlight Josh in the chat says the question is not if USC can outscore Fresno, but can USC stop Fresno from scoring?
100%, yeah. This is the 2005 situation.
Yes, this is definitely the game where the defense could get exposed.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the first 2 weeks, I think you could absolutely see that. I think that we've talked about the idea of SC being Big 12 bad, and I think that you're going to see that in week 2 against Stanford and week 3 against
That's why
SC.
USC has to have Reggie Bush lead the team out on the field for this and go get his uniform and pads on so that he can relive that whole thing.
That Fresno State game was so incredible because obviously it's the signature game for Reggie Bush, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same point, he fumbles in the fourth quarter and SC nearly loses because of it. Like, it's wild. Like, no one ever remembers that part.
Yeah, it helps when you have like a classic highlight that everyone can focus on instead.
This is true. Week 4, SC goes on the road to Corvallis, a Reser Stadium that is currently like being torn down and built up at the same time. And it's Jonathan Smith and the Beavers coming off a 7-6 record. A 7-6 record that features a dominant win over SC, in which the Beavers won for the first time in the Coliseum since 1960. 1960. And of course, they return a bunch of guys, 15 starters, 6 on offense, 9 on defense. Chase Nolan back at quarterback, but did I see that he wasn't picked as a captain? So, like, it's one of those situations. Is there a controversy?
I didn't know that.
At quarterback for the Beavs? I don't know. I thought Chase Nolan was pretty damn good last year. Isaac Hodgins is back, 30 starts on that defensive line. He's someone to keep an eye on. And one of the best offensive linemen in the conference, Joshua Gray, over at left tackle, is a guy to help the Beavers on the ground. The Beavers have been great in the run game. They're going to have to break in a new starter after losing the guy from last season who I can't remember. Baylor? The name Baylor, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What do you got?
I feel like a prisoner of 2006 or 7 and 8 and all of the
2007 SC.
I'm a prisoner of the early 2000s. I'm a prisoner of the Pete Carroll era. If I was treating this game exactly like I treated the Fresno State game or the Stanford game, this would be a win for USC. But I'm a prisoner. The road trip to Oregon State is way different to me than the road trip to Stanford. It just feels different. I have a bad feeling in my gut. Oregon State can put up points. Their defense has been bad, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll be slightly less bad. I gotta go. I'm going loss. I don't think USC is going to make it through the first 4 games of the season without a loss. Will it definitely be Oregon State? I don't know. But there will be one loss in those first 4 games.
Ross in the chat on YouTube says,
don't do it, Alicia. And Josh is saying, where's the optimistic Alicia? I mean, I think I can be optimistic Alicia and still admit that, like, the chances of there being just some random loss in the first 4 games of the season is likely.
Yeah, for me, this is a loss because Oregon State's a good football team. I think that this is a no-shame loss. Not necessarily in what no shame would be as in a loss in Notre Dame or Utah. And like those are, top 10 teams. But I think Oregon State at Corvallis, weird things happen there, especially when Jonathan Smith is on the field. SC knows that quite well. Look back at 2000. Things are, I think this is one of those games where SC fights pretty hard, and just doesn't get the early win. And I don't think there's any shame in that because Oregon State's a pretty damn good football team. So 2-2 on the start for me. You have SC starting 3-1 out of the gate in September. Let's go to week 5. It's Arizona State and Herm Edwards, who somehow still has a job, despite no one knowing why. The Sun Devils were 8-5 last year.
I know why, because their athletic director shouldn't have a job, and he still does too. So
it is utterly baffling how ASU continues to exist, but they do. 8-5 were the Sun Devils last year. They do bring back 7 starters. The quarterback is Emory Jones. Gone is Jaden Daniels, who's off to LSU. Emory Jones is transferring in from Florida. They got a receiver transfer from Utah, Brian Thompson. Merlin Robertson, the guy on defense, still continues to be their talisman on defense. But what do you got? SC played a weird game last year against ASU, in which they had plenty of chances but lost by 15 on the road.
This ASU team is a dumpster fire. Emory Jones is not the savior. No. Yes, he wins. Herm Edwards is nope.
Yeah.
He's not gonna save himself this year. Nope.
I think this might be one of the biggest wins on the calendar for me. On the schedule.
I can get behind that.
I see Arizona State as a team in absolute turmoil.
Absolutely.
And I would not be surprised if they end up just completely imploding and not showing it all this season.
Yeah, this could be a mid-season firing situation too.
It should have been a preseason firing situation.
Straight up. So,
yeah, I think there are too many moving parts. Jaden Daniels they'll miss, and I don't think Jaden Daniels ever got to the potential that he was supposed to.
Better than Emory Jones.
Yes, better than Emory Jones, but I don't think he was the quarterback ASU wanted him to ever be. Let's go to week 6. Washington State, it's family weekend. Jake Dickert is back. His first full season, second year, all told, for the Cougs. They were 7-6 last year. This is an interesting team. I think that a lot of reasons to sort of root for Washington State. Dickert dealt a bad hand last year after the whole shabacle that happened. But this is a team in which they lost a ton of dudes. They're 119th in overall returning production. They do have a new quarterback in Cameron Ward, who's the second team All-America FCS quarterback from Incarnate Word from last year. But still a lot of moving parts. Washington State's not ready. I think SC gets a easy win here in week 6 against the Cougs.
Yeah, the only wild card here is if Cameron Ward turns out to be something special.
Yeah.
And, maybe he does. I just don't have the evidence to support that at this point. So, no, I don't think the trajectory that Washington State is on suggests that this should be anything but a win for USC, especially at home. Maybe getting caught looking ahead to Utah is the only worry, but I'm not even going to go there. It just, this matchup doesn't suit Washington State, and by this point in the season, if injuries aren't taking their toll, then teams should start you should start to feel like they've got some momentum going. You should start to feel like they're coming together, and
right.
If you're looking at hopefully having the defense turn things around. This has got to be the point. These 2 games, Arizona State, Washington State, has got to be the point where things start clicking for them. So if you call this a loss, then something's going wrong. Something's going wrong as far as the implementation of the defense, or there's just massive injuries, and we can't predict massive injuries because you don't know when or where those are going to strike. It's got to be a win.
This is a win. I don't think you need to explain it that much. This is going to be a win for SC against Washington State. I want to see what Washington State can do. I'd root for them in the North to see what they can do.
Yeah.
And Cam Ward is interesting, even though he shares a name with a a pretty average goalie who was one time a Conn Smythe winner. But that's a whole side plot. Let's go to week 7, the game of the season. On the road at Rice Eccles. The last trip for SC going into Rice Eccles. The last time SC has to go there before they trade in Utah for Utah, who I've always considered like the Iowa of the Pac-12 in terms of like that pesky opponent who just like somehow just beats everybody, and like you're like, how did they do it again?
Yeah.
And now SC will have to play real Iowa pretty soon. But nonetheless, October 15th at Rice Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City, Kyle Whittingham, his 18th season as the head coach of the Utes after replacing a little guy named Urban Meyer. 10-4 were the Utes last year. They lost the Rose Bowl in a crazy, crazy barn burner of a game. Returning production is there. They bring back Cam Rising and 8 starters on offense. Tavion Thomas is back. Brant Keithy is back at tight end. Dalton Kincaid is back at tight end. You got to be loving that. On defense, it's a little bit tougher of the returning production, a little bit less there, but I don't care. It's a Kyle Whittingham defense. They'll be ready.
Yeah, when I say that USC is going to lose this game, it's not because I think this USC team is going to be deficient in any way. I love this Utah team. I think this Utah team is going to be exceptional.
Yeah.
Cam Rising is a dog at quarterback. That offense is going to do what they do. The concern I have is they did lose Devin Lloyd. Big personalities on defense that they need to fill, but we've seen Kyle Whittingham and this defense take care of business every year and recycle and reload and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to count them out on that front. When you go to Salt Lake City to play a Utah team that looks as good as this one, you're just going to risk having the loss. Now,
Utah's a good team.
I think this will be a closer loss than it had been in the past. I think it will be a game where potentially USC's offense can keep them in the game. But when it comes down to it, Rice Eccles, it's just, you got to pencil this one in as a loss.
This is a game I'm looking forward to, because I think that it's going to be a super fun game. Like, this is the matchup that you want to see what this USC offense can do against in an environment like that. But against a team like Utah that has so much going for them, even if their defense isn't completely as stacked as it was last year with Devin Lloyd and all that. Again, it's Kyle Whittingham. They're going to be ready. They're going to be prepared. I can't imagine that they're just going to line up and do the man defense thing like in the man coverage thing in the Matt Fink game. But you never know. This is going to be the game of the year in the Pac-12. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to go down to the end. I think Utah gets the win at the end, and there's no shame in that for SC because Utah is a damn good team. And through 7 games going into the bye week, I have SC at 4-3. You have SC at 5-2. Both of those sound like records of the Clay Helton era, but I am going to say this right now before anyone looks at my record and says that I'm doubting Lincoln Riley. I am not. I am not at all. This is all about year one. Remember Nick Saban in year one at Alabama went 6-6 in the regular season. So I don't think there's any issue starting out 4-3 if that is the case. And this is all about the eye test and what you do in the second half of the season. We will see that when we get to the second half of the season, which starts 2 weeks later, week 9 at Arizona against Jed Fish and the Wildcats. We've talked about them before. Kind of feel like Colorado a few years back under Mike McIntyre, in which like they might be like pesky. Washington was, Arizona was pesky last year, right?
Yeah, they seem to play with a certain amount of belief that's scary for a team that's not very good on paper, and those are the kind of teams that pull off upsets. Yeah. I know you said it reminds you of Colorado. It almost reminds me of like Jonathan Smith, Oregon State, when it was like, this is not a good team, but like that team clearly buys into their head coach.
Wait, which Jonathan Smith, Oregon State? Like last year's?
No, like the second
Like 2
year.
years ago?
Yeah. Where it's not like they were winning a lot of games, but they were closer than you would expect in a lot of games. And I think that's what you've seen from this Arizona team. It's like, I don't know that they're capable of beating anyone yet, but they're closer than they should be.
Yes.
Given how skeptical I was of Jed Fish as a head coach and what that roster that he inherited looked like, and, you know, all of that. So when you look at that 1-11 record, like, it wasn't like a, you know, face down in the dirt 1-11. It was like they were trying 1-11. So, you know, I'm not gonna peg this as an upset special or anything for USC. I think USC still wins this game, but like, this would not surprise me at all if USC wins this game and it's like a little closer for comfort than it really has any right to be, just because it's at Arizona and it's coming off that the Utah game, and win or lose that game, there's a letdown possibility the next week.
Are you saying win?
Oh, I'm absolutely saying win. Yes, absolutely saying win. But I do want to give respect to Arizona. They have Jaden DeLaura, the Washington State transfer.
Yeah, he can make plays.
Jed Fish recruited Tataro McMillan, who was a legitimate receiver prospect.
Yeah.
So like, and they've got Hunter Echols on defense, so that'll be an interesting matchup. Like, they're doing good things there. I don't think they're going to beat USC.
No.
I don't even think it's going to be close. I think it'll be close for a minute there, and it's going to be like, oh, look at Arizona fighting. Like, this is something.
I think Arizona could put in a strong 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This is SC in a runaway.
Yeah, yeah. But like, don't count out the strong Arizona 20 minutes. Like, don't count that out as a very, very strong possibility, just to keep you on the edge of your seat for a little bit.
Yeah, it's a win. It's a win for both of us. And I think both of us would have SC winning somewhat sizably, even if we do believe in Arizona a little bit. Let's go to week 10.
Basically, don't take USC. Whatever line they give you, like, don't take USC in a bet.
So you're already picking Arizona to cover?
So I would pick Arizona to cover, because this line is going to be something like 40 points. It's going to be like 35 points.
That's fair. Then again, we don't know. If this is an SC team that, scores 50 in a blink of an eye, then
you never know.
You never know. Yeah.
This is why
all right. Week 10, game 9, at home against Cal. It's homecoming for Justin Wilcox, now in his 6th year up at Berkeley, which is crazy to think about. The Bears were 5-7 last year. They don't return a lot on offense. Just 3 starters, 114th overall in returning production. Jack Plummer is the quarterback transfer from Purdue. Jackson Sermon is the linebacker transfer from Washington. Justin Wilcox knows his dad pretty damn well. And I don't know what to make of Cal. I think Cal is well coached. I think Cal is what Cal has been. I think they are a difficult team to play against, but I think at this point in the year, after the bye week, I think SC is going to start to hit their groove.
Cal is just trending in the wrong direction. I think that we've seen the best of Justin Wilcox at Cal. I think that...
Have we seen the best of Justin Wilcox, or have we seen the best of Justin Wilcox at Cal?
I think we've seen the best of Justin Wilcox at Cal. Okay. I just don't know how you succeed at Cal at this point. It's hard to recruit there, given the financial situation that athletic program is in. I don't see them being better than the 5-7 that they've been.
Yeah.
USC lost to them in a game last year that was completely irrelevant, and
a game that meant nothing to anybody.
So, like, obviously,
Miller Moss got plenty.
They can come out and play, but like, there's very little to like about Cal, honestly. I again, it's one of those teams, like, in a less extreme version of like Rice, where you just look at the lineup and just go, I don't. There's no one that puts the fear of God in me when it comes to this team. So, of course, they're going to upset USC.
Wait, are you picking them to win?
No. I got USC as a win.
Okay.
USC is a win.
Yeah.
At home, I don't see this being anything that USC will have to worry about.
SC gets the win for you to go to 7-2, me 6-3. Let's go to week 11. It's Colorado. last ever time SC has to play Carl Durrell, because I'm calling it now. There's no way he comes back next year. Like, let's stop the experiment already. The Buffs were 4-8 last year. They were pretty bad. Brendan Lewis, not the Brendan Lewis at quarterback thing, not necessarily working. There's a reason that Brendan Rice ultimately transferred to SC. It's a Friday night game. Colorado has never, ever, ever, ever beaten SC in football. Can we just pencil in the wins for both of us here?
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of plug in a lot of what I said about Cal for this. I don't like the direction of the program. There really isn't a lot of reasons to be optimistic at all.
Yeah.
It's just, no. It would take some sort of act of God for this to turn out to be anything but a win for USC.
You and your act of God and fear of God.
This is
your Notre Dame.
God-fearing God-fearing Alicia is in the chat.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Week 12, Game 11 for USC, November 19th, at UCLA at the Rose Bowl. Chip Kelly. It is a big year for Chip Kelly. The Bruins have an interesting thing going on. The 95th in overall returning production. They returned just 2 starters on defense, which is crazy. But back again at quarterback is Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I thought they were really good last year. I thought they were good 2 years ago in the COVID year. Kind of turned things around. They were pretty damn good last year, except a couple of games in which they lost were a little frustrating to see if you're a UCLA fan, which if you're watching this, you're probably not. Fresno State game, lost at the end. But DTR is back for year 5. He absolutely tore SC a new one last November. Bruins scored, was it 62 points, tying Chip Kelly's road record at the Coliseum of scoring 62 points. What happens this year at the Rose Bowl?
Well, I think everything you take last year and just throw it out the window, especially when you're dealing with a rivalry game. UCLA for the last handful of years has been a team that you look at and go, well, they could be good or they could be really bad. And they've sort of been floating in between that sort of, we're going to be a little bit good sometimes, but also a bit bad sometimes. And we're just going to get one win better every season to make you sort of think that maybe this next year is the year. And Chip Kelly's going to keep his job because they pay him, they don't want to pay his buyout and all of that.
You know what I find frustrating about the Chip Kelly era? I think if Chip Kelly's name was anything else,
he wouldn't.
I think that you'd look at them and say, like, they're in a good situation. But, like, the hype of the Chip Kelly hire, they have never lived up to. I think they were a really good team last year, and you'd want to believe in that coaching staff. If it wasn't year 4 under Chip Kelly, the best coach they could have hired at the time. You know what I mean? Like, they are achieving things while not achieving anything at the same time, and that's so weird to sort of gauge where they are as a whole.
Yeah, well, they were 8-4 last year, and it was a very unimpressive 8-4 to me.
I think they can be good.
They can be good on their day, but they're not. I mean, you know what? They're a microcosm. Excuse me. They're a microcosm of like DTR. DTR, good-ish quarterback, but only ever good-ish or below. Like,
right.
You can't count on him to be like a great quarterback. And maybe he proves me wrong this year. But
quarterback for sure.
Yeah, good dual threat. He's a playmaker. Give him respect, but like he's never that level higher that they need him to be, right? Like that whole team is that. So to me, USC wins this game. I can't pick USC to lose this game. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I think SC gets a win. I go back to what I said. I think that this season for SC is going to be about getting over some early season hurdles of some growing pains by introducing 2 new systems on offense and defense, especially on defense. But I think when you get to the end, I think SC's going to be clicking on all cylinders. That's what we've seen from Oklahoma, right? Like, Oklahoma's been a team under Lincoln Riley where maybe they have an early season setback, and then they end up inevitably getting to the Big 12 championship game. That's sort of what I see from SC this year.
Yeah.
I think they have an early season setback, and then they just kind of put on the afterburners. And I think that's one big statement is at UCLA at the Rose Bowl to get Lincoln Riley's sort of his first signature win. So we agree that SC wins the victory bell back.
Yeah, and I wouldn't pick it any other way.
All right, let's go. Week 13, the final game of the regular season, November 26th. Thanksgiving Saturday against your alma mater, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Marcus Freeman in his first season as the head coach of the Domers. The Irish were 11-2 last year. Returning production, not the greatest. 93rd overall, they were ranked according to SP Plus in returning production. 49% of the returning production is back on offense, which is 113th in the country. What make of you of the Irish?
Okay.
What are you doing?
Okay. I have been all summer very comfortable with a 9-3 record for USC. Really comfortable with like a 9-3, 8-4 if things go wrong earlier in the season.
So you're predicting a loss and a win for your alma mater.
The more I look at Notre Dame, the less I like them. Like Marcus Freeman, first-year head coach, Clay Helton vibes, Ed Orgeron vibes, like interim coach energy vibes, but like not enough actual experience under his belt to justify having the reins at such a premium university.
Mm-hmm.
They won't have, like, I thought Jack Cohen was a good quarterback for them last year. He's gone. The returning production thing, like across the board, they've lost a lot of key players.
Mm-hmm.
If I think, like you, that by this time in the season, we should start to see the Lincoln Riley effect in full force. The offense should be clicking. The defense should be at least stabilized a little bit. At the Coliseum with a Notre Dame team that I don't trust, lock me in for 10-2. Lock me in for 10-2.
You're doing it.
I'm doing it. I told myself not to do it, but I'm doing it. Lock me in for 10-2.
Wow.
It
How does it feel to
happened.
pick against your
Your
alma mater?
I feel great because I'm very skeptical of Notre Dame all the time.
Well, there you go. You have SC finishing 10-2.
And I don't know.
With a perfect final half of the season, five straight wins.
I don't know how I got there because I was very resistant to the idea of 10-2.
All right,
Here we are.
I have to agree with you in this. I think that the last 2 weeks of the year, I think, are just going to be statement wins for SC against UCLA and Notre Dame. I think that's when everything should come together. I don't think SC is going to be a perfect team by the end of the season. I don't necessarily in this sort of prediction, which gives me a 9-3 record and you a 10-2 record. Like, I don't necessarily think the SC is going to be a finished product and then potentially, depending on how everything breaks out, go out and beat Utah again. I don't necessarily think that's gonna. I mean, in this situation, beat Utah for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's going to play out. Having said that, I think that year one, we've talked about before, is all about establishing that you're better and establishing improvement. And I think this year is going to be about that. I think SC sort of puts everything together in the second half and gets better as they go. And, there's a comment in here from Poncho Cam, 3 losses is an early season setback, and Riley has never lost more than 2 games in a season. That's true. Lincoln Riley has also never had to inherit talent, or inherit a roster that went 4-8 the year before. So I think that's important to mention here. And you look back at it, and you look at the losses that I have SC losing to Stanford and Oregon State. They absolutely can win both of those games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, and they could lose the UCLA game.
Yeah.
Like
they could lose the Notre Dame game. Yeah.
There's a couple different ways that things can go. I think the key thing for me in my prediction, the spirit of this, and what I've said the last couple of months is do not read too much into the wins and losses. Look at how USC looks in the eye test.
Mm-hmm.
And I think USC's going to be pretty good at the end of the season in the eye test.
Honestly, like 10-2, outside of being undefeated and actually being a legitimate team that can actually contend, which is obviously the best case scenario, that would be wonderful.
Right.
10-2 would feel really good, because assuming that those 2 losses are not 2017 losses, like that's the key. Like don't get blown out is really just like you can lose as many games as you want, but don't get blown out as far as I'm concerned if we're talking eye tests. But 10-2 would feel really good because momentum's really good. You're clearly building towards something, but you're not in danger of getting thrown into the playoff prematurely so that your momentum gets crushed by Alabama.
You could be, though.
Because, I mean, you could be at 10-2 and then a Pac-12 title win, but
if you beat Utah, you erase the yearly one.
But loss. Your likelihood is a 10-2 of 11-2. Your likelihood to get in the playoff with 2 losses is certainly lower than with 1 loss or no losses.
But you don't think people will be willing to like buy into the narrative? Like,
if USC won their last 5 games in a row and then reverse the Utah,
people will be like, do you remember the 2016 season?
Yes, I do. They were talking about USC. So I know.
I mean, people made that argument in 2017, even though no one believed it.
My end goal for this season is positive moves forward and don't have to play Alabama at any point in the season. That's it. Like, if you get out of this without having to play Alabama, because that will be embarrassing for everybody who has to do it, and I don't want to watch that, then you're good.
Yeah. There you go. You have SC at 10-2. I have SC 9-3. Those are our season predictions. More to come from us this week. USC and Rice locking horns at the Coliseum on Saturday afternoon. We're going to be predicting our predictions. Wink, wink. Wonder what those are going to be for that game, and previewing that game in more detail later this week on Monday night, 5 p.m. here on YouTube.
As for Rice?
Yeah.
Wednesday night.
That's what I said, Wednesday night.
I thought you said Monday.
Wednesday night.
Oh, we might be. We're in a state.
I mean Wednesday.
Yeah. As the chat pointed out, they want score predictions, which I hate giving, by the way.
The score predictions come in our game previews.
But score predictions will come on Wednesday.
Yeah.
There you go.
In every game preview episode, we put out the score predictions.
Over-unders and...
Yeah, over-under game. We'll get all of those things. So be on the lookout for those. Couple of questions we want to get to here before we wrap this thing up. So if you got questions, throw them in the chat. And then we will wrap this thing up and see you guys again on Wednesday. First one comes from Josh. How optimistic Alicia tonight, being that it's game week?
I mean, 10-2. That's all I gotta say. I'm feeling good. 10-2. That's the first time I've done 10-2 this entire offseason, so that's exciting.
Yeah. Dave says, is there going to be a Rot Over Under Google Doc this season? Yes, we will do it. We will do over unders and send out a Google form for you guys to fill out and play over under with us. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that again, as we've done the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, it should be fun too, because there's sort of a new vibe around the offense and defense. So I think we're going to be potentially able to go a little bit more bold in our over-unders at times, a little less dire having to do penalty predictions, although that's entirely possible. We could have done those during the Pete Carroll era too. So
yeah, how many false starts will there be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ross says, when does the depth chart drop? I don't know. The game notes came out on Monday morning, this morning, and there was no depth chart in them. So
I am beginning to think there will not be a depth chart that gets dropped. So a lot of teams do that. A lot of teams don't drop a depth chart until after week 1. Mm-hmm. Could be they drop something later in the week. It really just depends on how they decide to proceed. It's up to Lincoln Riley.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's going to wrap us up for our season predictions episode. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. Also, if you've been watching us on YouTube, go find us on Apple Podcasts and everything else, because we did put down a roundtable with our friend Keely Orr and our other friend, Kenneth Martin from Traveler Hates Thursdays, formerly of Traveler Hates Thursdays, a podcast we miss desperately. Like, we need that back in our lives. But we got Keely and Kenny on Friday and posted a roundtable, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. So go listen to that. Thank you guys for listening, as always. Again, if you're on YouTube, be sure to like the stream here, the video, and subscribe to us. And then if you're on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review, and we'll see you back on Wednesday night to preview the Rice Owls, USC and Rice, coming up Saturday afternoon. And then, of course, Saturday night, the first live CarCast in Random Troy history.
It's gonna be a fun one, guys.
A solo pod for Alicia, so that'll be a good time. So thank you guys, as always, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. See ya.
See ya.